Hello class and welcome to the video tutorial for completing the piano project. So let's take a look at what we have here on Canvas. It says, hello class, this project is completely optional. Okay, so I want to make that very clear. This project is only if you want to do it. Okay, and is intended for anyone who wants to learn how to add sounds to a web page. This project will not be for a grade and you will not be able to submit through Canvas. Okay, so if you go ahead and you move forward with this assignment, you're going to complete it in Code HS, like always, but then you're not going to submit it to Canvas because it's not for a grade and it's completely optional. So once again, completely optional. Just want to make that very clear to everybody here at the start. So then we're filming the video now, so you'll have that to work through. Okay. If you have trouble while you're working through the assignment, just let me know and I'm happy to help you out. Okay, now in the Canvas assignment, you're going to see some links down here, and we're going to get to what those are and how we're going to use them here in a little bit. But they're sound files, okay, because it says in the directions we're going to be adding sounds to a web page. We haven't done that yet, and I want to show you how that, that can work within our coding out on Code HS. So with that, I want to show you here at the start what the completed product is going to look like. So you see over here in my little test area that I have some buttons and I have letters inside those buttons. These are kind of representing the keys on a piano. Now notice what happens when I click on these different buttons. Okay, so different sounds. Those are an A through a G note on the piano. And then down below you'll notice the clapping hands emoji. So when I click on this, okay, I get the sound of applause. So we're going to be recreating that together. So let's go ahead and take a look how we can do that. So first off, I want you to start from your sandbox out in Code HS, and where it says create a new program, I want you to go ahead and call it the piano project, and then create the program, and as always you select HTML. Okay, and then create program. Now after this is created, we're going to go ahead and get rid of the first line, and we'll put in our basic tags as always. Okay, we can title it piano. We are going to go ahead and add some CSS styling, so we'll put the style tags in as a holder. We will be using some JavaScript, so I'm going to put my script tag in as well, and then my body tag. Alright, so to get started, what we're going to do is we are actually going to go ahead and we are going to write the JavaScript. Okay? So this JavaScript will be a little bit different than what we did before with our button assignment, where we were going ahead and we were doing the comic strips. So here, what we're going to do is we are actually going to start with our variable. Okay? Previously we had our function and then we had our variable, but it's going to be a little bit different for this one. What we're going to do is we're going to have multiple variables, and then below those multiple variables, we will have our function. So let's take a look at what this should look like. First, I want you to type var for variable. Okay, I'm going to give us a little bit more space here. Okay, space, and then a lowercase a, and then capital A in the word audio. Okay, equals the word new, space, audio, okay, parentheses, and then a apostrophe. Okay, you want to click to the right of the closing parenthesis and put in a semicolon. That semicolon is going to be very important because we're going to have multiple variables, so you want to make sure that you close each one before moving on to the next one. So now what I want you to do is I want you to take this line of code and I want you to copy it. Okay, and we're actually going to paste that several times. One more time. Okay, so that you have a total of 7 variables. Then just a slight change to each of them. So the second variable, I want you to change the lowercase a to a lowercase b. The third one, a lowercase a to a lowercase c. Okay, and so on, changing them to a lowercase d, lowercase e, lowercase f, and lowercase g. Okay, now each of these variables, okay, is going to line up with a different note on the piano, like I showed you earlier. Okay, but in order to make this happen, we have to get our sound files, and we're going to place our sound files here in between these apostrophes, because that's what the computer is then going to recognize that we want it to play when we click on those different buttons. Okay, so now the sound files are back in the Canvas assignment. So if we go back, here we can see A note, B note, C note, D, E, F, G note. Okay, these are going to line up with the different variables that we just added. So the first one, the A note, you want to right click and you want to copy the link address. You want to come back to your project, this one, and you want to paste it in that first set of apostrophes. Okay? Now you're going to want to do that for the B, the C, the D, the E, the F, and the G. So I'm going to go ahead and do that quickly. Just remember, copy link address. And make sure that you line it up with the correct variable. Okay, and last one. Okay, very good. So now, we're not really in a position yet where we can save and run, because if we do that right now, it's going to be a blank page. We haven't added any content down to the body. Okay, so we're just going to have to assume that at this point we've done it correctly, and then we'll be able to test it here in a little bit. Now, we're not done with our function. We have our variables added, but we didn't actually add a function yet. So what I want you to do is I want you to make a line, a blank line below our last variable. Now, on this line, okay, we want to type function, okay, space, and we're going to call it my audio function. Now, take note of how I capitalized, okay, the different letters within this function. I capitalized the A and the F. Okay, you want to make sure that you capitalize those same words, or excuse me, same letters in your function name. Okay, then we want to go ahead and we want to put in a parentheses, and we want to type the word letter. Okay, now lowercase l here. I know that kind of looks like a capital, but you want to make sure that that is lowercase. Okay, that's just the font style that CodeHS puts it in, but it's a lowercase l. Now after that, after the closing parenthesis, you want to go ahead and put in an opening curly bracket, and then hit enter immediately so that you get this closing curly bracket. Make sure that you have that, okay, because that is important. Now, within the function, we are going to start a series of if statements. So you want to go ahead and type the word if, should turn purple, parenthesis, letter, the word letter, equals, so two equal signs, apostrophe, and then the letter A. Okay, so this is basically saying if within our page, and we're going to tie them to the buttons, if you see something with this identifier A, or value of A, then what I want you to do, and that's going to be the next part of this if statement. Okay, so another opening curly bracket, followed by the enter key to get this second closing bracket. You're going to see two of them. Okay, make sure that you have this curly bracket to close after the first if statement, and then this closing curly bracket closes the function overall. Okay, so in between, or on the line below, if letter equals A, what we want to do is we want to type lowercase a, capital A, audio. Okay, now notice this lines up with my variable up above, okay, because if we see a value of A, what is going to happen is it's going to play the A note audio file that we added right here. Okay, so we want to make sure that this lines up with this. And you'll notice that CodeHS kind of helps us out. Notice how when I highlight it, it puts a box around it up here. That's CodeHS identifying it in both places and just kind of giving us a little bit of a visual, kind of acknowledging that they do line up. So that's just something to be aware of. Okay, so now after we have A audio, we want to put dot play and then empty parentheses. So this is the play function, or the play command. what it'll do is it'll initiate the process of playing that sound file. Okay, that's how the computer kind of reads that. Now, after we have that, what we want to do is we want to copy all of this if statement, the first one with the letter value of A. Okay, and we want to copy, and what we want to do is when we want to click after this closing curly bracket and hit enter. Notice how I'm in between the closing curly bracket that ends my if statement and the closing curly bracket that ends my first function. On that blank line, I want to paste, and I have to make two small changes. First, I'm going to change the value of the letter to B, and I'm also going to change the variable that will play when the computer sees a value of B down below in my body when we get to the buttons. Okay, so here I want to change this to lowercase b as well. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the same process all the way through the G note. Okay, so I'm going to change this to C, C. Okay, this will become D. Okay, and D as well. E, F, and finally G. Okay, lowercase g in both places, in the value and the variable name. Now, once again, we're still not quite ready to see if this is going to work for us, okay, but we are done with the function. So now what we have to do is we have to add the piano keys, okay, remember these guys? We have to add them into the body section of our page. So that's going to be pretty simple, but what we're going to do is we are going to be putting a link around each of the buttons, okay? So let me show you how this is going to work. First off, okay, make sure that you are in between the body tags. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to center all of my content. So I'm going to go ahead and put the center tags in there first. Just a little bit easier to do it first before doing it after. Now, in between those center tags, what I want you to do is do a less than sign, letter A, space, okay, on click, equals, quotation marks. And then in this quotation mark, this is where we want to put in the name of our function. Now, this is important. You want to make sure that what you type here matches the name that we assigned up here exactly. So this is where capitalization is going to be important. So my audio function, and then parenthesis, and I'm going to assign the value of A to this first button. Okay, so notice how I put an A in there inside the parentheses, inside the apostrophes, okay, within the quotation marks. I want to move to the right of that closing quotation mark and put a greater than sign. And then that puts in a closing link tag for me. Now inside of this, okay, link, this is where I want to put a button tag. Okay, within the button, okay, I don't have to do anything other than just put the letter A, because that's going to be the word that's going to show up within the button itself. So now if I save and I run, okay, here's my button. I have A. If I click on it, okay, we get a sound. That's the A note. Okay, so that means that the function that I did up above is working correctly, so that is good. So now I have my first button. I need to do that for the remaining notes, B through G. So what I can do to save time is I can copy all of this coding, okay, and I can move down to the next line, and then it becomes a pretty quick process. Once again, change the value of my function to B. I'll change the word or the letter in my button itself, and I'll change it to B. Okay, I'm going to do the same exact thing for the rest of the notes. Okay, so the value will now become C. The button will show the letter C. Okay, D, capital D. Okay, E, F, and then finally G. Okay, so now if I save and run, there are the different buttons. Now they don't quite look like this yet, but we're going to work on that. But let's test them all out. Okay, so I have all of my sounds. Now, if if you're like me, you kind of struggle to hear the difference between them, but some people are very good at hearing the difference in the notes. Okay, but I assure you they are different notes. Okay, so we have A through G. Now, what we can do, okay, is we will go ahead and we'll work on our styling first, and then we'll go ahead and we'll add the clapping hands emoji. Okay, so let's go ahead and work on our styling, and then we'll add that last. So, as always, when we're working on style using CSS, we want to go back up to our style tags. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a background color. Feel free to put whatever background color you would like on your individual assignments. I'm going to go ahead and add a background color of just gray. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the style of the buttons themselves, because right now they don't look very much like piano keys, do they? They just look like very small, tiny gray buttons. So what I'm first going to do is I'm going to change the size. So I'm going to change the height to 100 pixels. Then I'm going to go ahead and change my background color of the buttons themselves to white. Okay, maybe I'm going to go ahead and change the words or the letters themselves to a bold weight. Okay, and then maybe I'm going to align them within the middle or centered within the button itself. And then finally I'm going to add some padding around the buttons, maybe 10 pixels worth of padding. Now you can go ahead and you can experiment, okay, with the different style of your buttons. It's totally up to you how you want to present them, but to me that looks a lot more like piano keys. Okay, now after you have that, okay, we are going to go ahead and add our applause sound. Now, what we can do, and we can make it very easy on ourselves, is we can just go ahead and we can add an additional variable here. Okay, and we want to get rid of the sound file. Okay, and we have to change the name of the variable itself. We can't have two G audios. If that's the case, either we're going to get the same sound file or neither of them is going to work. So what we have to do is we have to change this to H audio. Okay, within the apostrophes, I'm going to go back to Canvas. I'm going to take the applause sound file from the instructions and copy the link address. Okay, I'm going to paste it right here in between my apostrophes. Okay, and that's the sound file that will play when the variable H audio is brought up through the function down below. Okay, now we need to add that. So we'll go down to the end of our function. We'll grab our last if statement. Okay, we'll go ahead and we'll change the letter to H. Even though we don't have an H note, you can change the value to whatever you want. And we have to make sure that our variable name here lines up with what we just typed up above. So it was H audio, and it'll play that when it sees something with the function and a value of H assigned to it. So what we can do, okay, is we don't want to use a button, right? We don't want to just have a little square. We want to have instead this picture of the clapping hands emoji. Now you can go out and you can find any image that you want with the clapping hands emoji. I just so happen to have one saved, so what I'm going to do is I am going to copy the image address from right here. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add that image below my buttons. Okay, so I'm first going to add the image itself. So img src equals quotation mark. Okay, there's the file or the image address, and I'm going to close the tag. Okay, now there's the clapping hands emoji. It's very big right now, okay, but it has been added. So we haven't done this before. We haven't linked a function to an actual picture yet, but it's very simple. All we have to do is we have to take this same link tag with the on-click command, put it at the beginning of our image tag. See how I have my opening link tag right here before my image tag? And then it's very important that you go all the way out to the end and you put in the closing link tag as well. So less than sign slash letter A greater than sign, and that'll close the link. Okay, now here the last little change instead of the function having a value of G, which would play the G note, I want to change that to H, which should then play my sound file. Now, what I want to do is I want to also make this image a lot smaller, because right now it's way too big. So before I test it out, I'm going to go back up in between my style tags. Okay, I'm going to type image, curly bracket, enter, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say, how big do I want to make this? I'm going to say width, colon, 150 px. So now if I save, my image should be a lot smaller, and it is, and that's good. Okay, additionally, now if I click on the hands, I get the applause, okay? And that's what I was looking for. So now what I can do is I can play my piano however I want. Okay, not the greatest piano player, but maybe these people like it, and they're going to give me an applause, okay? So that's just a little bit of a review or an introduction on how sounds can be added to a web page using JavaScript functions. Now, if you have any questions, you can't get something to work, let me know, and I'll be happy to take a look at your coding and see what might be going on. Okay, thanks, and I'll see you in class.